My husband, Charles, told me he wants to marry the woman he's been seeing and asked for a divorce. He didn't want to bother with splitting our things, just wanted me to leave quickly. Sharon, his new girlfriend, seemed to enjoy seeing me upset. Donald, our friend, is also leaving because he's in love with a woman he met at a bar. They both don't want to live with me anymore. I agreed to leave as they wished, but before I go, I want to speak my mind. My name is Joy Lynn, and I'm 50 years old. Life hasn't always been joyful for me, despite my name. But now, I've found happiness, and I can laugh at the past. Let me tell you about when I was 35, about to celebrate my 10th wedding anniversary with Charles. We didn't have any children, and it was painful to hear people ask us why or tell us how wonderful kids are. Charles and I didn't talk much anymore. His job had gotten busier after a promotion, and he was traveling a lot. I was busy with work too, so we hardly spent time together. Maybe that's why we never had children. I used to think that whether we had kids or not didn't really matter much in a marriage. Then one day, our family unexpectedly grew, but not in the way we hoped. Instead of a baby, it was Charles' parents who seemed like they came straight from hell. Apparently, ever since we got married, they'd been pressuring Charles to let them live with us. Charles thought it might be easier to just give in rather than keep saying no. He thought it was a rational decision, even though I didn't agree. He argued that since I was hardly ever home, it wouldn't bother me much. But I had issues with his parents even before we lived together. They were always asking when we have kids, which made me uncomfortable. Sharon, Charles' new girlfriend, was also pushing for more children every time we saw her. Living with Charles' parents was a stomach-churning experience. I had only given birth to Charles, so it was quite unsettling. I had imagined it would be difficult, but it turned out even worse than I expected. Donald solemnly declared that they wouldn't provide any pension or living expenses. Sharon seemed pleased with this arrangement. I was confused. Charles also agreed, saying we could manage without financial support since we both worked. I never had many complaints about Charles before, but now I felt dissatisfied. I used to think a husband who was calm and hardworking was enough. Living with Charles' parents made me realize why they wanted to stay with us. Donald often went out at night, claiming he was meeting friends for drinks. But then, I found a point card from a nightclub and a business card with Nancy written on it in the laundry. It seemed there were different types of bars involved. This was clearly a service industry that directly satisfies a man's desires. Donald seemed to have a liking for Nancy. I couldn't believe he had so much energy at his age. I meant this in a negative way. No wonder he couldn't provide us with living expenses. He was probably spending it on Nancy. On the other hand, Sharon started harassing me gradually. She was cunning and made the harassment worse. It got to a point where I didn't even notice it at first. Initially, I thought she was being kind. I could have handled it if it was just about how I did laundry or cooked, but Sharon started calling me by Charles' ex-girlfriend's name. She would apologize, saying she remembered her because she was Charles's first girlfriend, whom he introduced to Sharon. At first, I thought maybe Sharon's age was causing her to make mistakes, but as it continued, I realized something was off. Every time I took a shower, the bathroom was dirty. I initially thought it was Charles or someone else, but since nobody complained about it being dirty, it had to be Sharon who used it before me. There were other instances too, like when Sharon mistakenly thought everyone had already bathed on a snowy day and unplugged the bathtub, leaving me to shower in freezing cold water. She also once took my favorite necklace from the closet without asking and then lost it. Each time, Sharon would say she didn't do it on purpose, she just wasn't thinking, and she apologized. While it's possible to accidentally shower or call someone by the wrong name, taking jewelry without permission is not something that can be brushed off as a mere oversight. I started to suspect that Sharon's behavior towards me was intentional harassment when I saw her angrily sitting at the dining table, complaining that dinner was late because I came home late. It dawned on me that this was indeed harassment, albeit subtle. I realized Sharon hadn't done any housework since she arrived. She threw her socks inside out into the laundry and tossed bottles into the trash without removing the labels, creating small inconveniences each time. She complained if meals were late or if the sheets were messy, and sometimes she even threw things around. I finally understood that our home was disrupted by the arrival of not one, but two babies, both big and delightfully stubborn. Exhausted from my job as a caregiver, all I wanted was to escape this situation and go to bed, so I silently tolerated Sharon's behavior. I didn't have the energy to argue with anyone. When I returned home, I just wanted to rest as quickly as possible, even if it was just for a moment. While I was too tired to notice at first, it seemed Sharon knew about Donald's nighttime outings. When an actress named Nancy appeared on TV, Sharon persistently asked Donald if he liked girls like her. Donald looked pale after that incident. I once asked Sharon if she was okay with Donald going out like that. She replied that if she got a divorce, she would be someone with a history of divorce at her age, which would look bad to society. She said she didn't like it, of course. He's just fooling around with professionals at the bar, right? If he's not serious, I can accept it. She wasn't holding back from divorce because of her concern for Donald, but rather because she feared having a history of divorce. I couldn't understand it. Turning a blind eye to infidelity must be causing her significant internal stress. Sharon's outlet for that stress was harassing me. By harassing me, she could vent her stress and avoid doing housework. It was like killing two birds with one stone. I was certain I knew why Sharon insisted on living with us. As we lived with Charles' parents, he increasingly made excuses not to come home, saying he had to work overtime. This house was rotten from the roots to the pillars. At this rate, even I might end up crushed under the rotten floorboards. Then, one day, about 6 months after we started living together, Charles, who rarely had the same day off, said something unexpected. "Please, let's get a divorce." It was a shock. It turns out, Charles had been having an affair with a classmate for a long time. He even said he wanted to marry her, and I had no clue. Apparently, they started dating just before he got promoted. I thought he was working hard for our sake, but could it have been for his classmate? Was it my fault for not paying attention to Charles' behavior? Using my exhaustion as an excuse, I thought affairs only happened on TV or to people like Donald. Maybe it's natural for Charles to cheat, given that Donald does it too. "Once this house is ready, my girlfriend and I are moving in. You can take your things and leave," Charles declared. Sharon asked what's going to happen to us. "You can stay. My girlfriend doesn't mind sharing," Charles responded. "What a nice girl," Donald chimed in. "Don't let her get away with it. If she asks for property division, we're going to use this house and everything in it." "Yeah, she's a really good girl, especially if she's cuter than Joy Len," Sharon added, giving Donald a look as if to say, "There you go again with women." Charles and Donald just laughed. "These people are hopeless," I replied. "All right, I'm fine with the divorce. There's a memorial ceremony in Atlanta soon, right? Can you wait until then?" Charles scoffed. "Planning on enjoying the feast at the memorial ceremony, are you? How pathetic. There's no way I'm taking the woman who's divorcing me. Just leave already." I shot back. "Who's the pathetic one here? Who cares about the food?" Despite everything, Sharon and I, the only women in the room, both cheated on, couldn't seem to get along. No, I was planning to move out on that day. Going back home is a bit embarrassing since I was cheated on. Finding a place and handling the paperwork takes time. I thought it would work out around then, I explained. Charles, not Sharon, replied condescendingly. "If that's the case, fine." Cheating and then acting all high and mighty. Don't underestimate me. I'll destroy everything. A week passed, and the long-awaited day of revenge finally arrived. That day, my parents-in-law and Charles left the house early in the morning to attend a memorial ceremony in Atlanta, planning to return by evening. All right then, let's give it a try, I thought. The garbage collection service I had hired arrived, and I had them load all the furniture in the house into the truck. The sofa, the microwave, Charles, and the parents-in-law's bed, Sharon's clothes that had accumulated since moving in, Charles' favorite new vacuum cleaner, even the refrigerator and its contents. All of it gone. Ah, minimalism is wonderful, I thought. With each item thrown away, it felt like my troubles were disappearing. Next, the movers came to transport my important belongings to my new place. By evening, the house was empty. The front door made a sound. It seemed Charles and the others had returned. I decided to greet them one last time as a good wife and stood at the entrance with a smile. What, you're still here? Charles frowned openly, as did my parents-in-law. Oh, that's harsh. It's the last time. So it's fine to see each other's faces before leaving, right? I wanted to see your face. Charles blushed slightly and chuckled. What's the big deal? Fine. Let's have a meal together one last time, shall we? Charles, strangely in a good mood, heads towards the living room. Saying this, followed by Sharon, who looks exasperated, saying, Charles is so sweet. Donald, on the other hand, turns to me with a proud look, saying, That's my son. I'm baffled. Having a meal together would have been a nice way to part if there was anything left to eat. Huh? What? The meaning of my words hits Charles upon opening the living room door. He lets out a silent exclamation. Sharon, annoyed, peeks into the living room after Charles and exclaims, Just like him. Donald does the same. Wait, why? The fridge? No, even the furniture, appliances too. Why is there nothing anywhere? Of course, I threw them out. The house feels much bigger now, doesn't it? I thought it would be bad to leave old furniture for your new life with your girlfriend. Consider it my parting gift. Why weren't you preparing to move? I've already moved. You throw away things you don't need when you move, right? Have you forgotten most of the things we bought when we got married were purchased with my money? Nothing bad will happen just because I, who didn't need them, threw them away. At my words, Charles points at me, his mouth moving but no words coming out. He seems too shocked to speak. With this, I'll forego any division of property. Well, there's hardly anything to divide anyway, I continue. Sharon, furious at my smile, says, What have you done? I'll return that phrase to your foolish son. There are limits to indecency, like cheating while having a wife and then saying to leave because you're remarrying. Wasn't your upbringing at fault? How could you speak to me like that? You were such a terrible daughter-in-law. Do you still consider yourself my mother-in-law? To me, you're just another old lady. I speak with a malicious smile, and Sharon mutters, so ungracious, shaking with anger. It's a secret that seeing Sharon angry is starting to be a bit fun. Don't you remember? If I ask for division of this house, you can't refuse, can you? Without the house, where would you two strangers live? You sold your family home, right? Yes, the parents-in-law had sold their house when they moved in with us. We won't need it anymore, they had said. So this house was absolutely necessary for them. They sided with their son's affair over his wife. Probably thinking, as long as there's a house with a housemaid, anything goes. Hearing my words, perhaps feeling rushed, Donald intervenes. Well, let's settle this amicably, pretending to be a good person. Yes, let's do that. Let's proceed calmly, just like the old man. I mean, just like Donald, suggests Sharon. Exactly. You know what I'm talking about, Joy Lynn. Of course. By the way, Donald, wasn't your cell phone broken today? Oh yeah, I realized it after leaving the house. It wouldn't turn on. If charging doesn't work, I guess I'll have to consult the store. There's no need for that. Your cell phone is right here, I say, pulling Donald's cell phone from my pocket. Huh? Two identical phones? What's going on? Donald is puzzled. I switched the phones just before you left today. The one I have is the real one, and the one you had is a used one I bought and removed the battery so it won't turn on. What? Since you aren't tech savvy, I thought you'd just give up easily, thinking it's broken or out of battery, I explain, smiling. Donald asks, why would you do that? Well, I have no clue. Speaking of which, you received an email today from your beloved Nancy, saying she had a good time the other day. You email each other daily, right? I'm so jealous of your close friendship, I continue. Donald gasps, while Sharon glares at him. So, Donald, you were out with Nancy the other day. Woohoo, more lively than with Sharon. But you should put a lock on your phone if you're cheating. You'll get caught easily. Stop it, Joy Lynn. But I thought cheating is wrong. Charles cheated on me, and it hurt. I know exactly how Sharon feels, so I did something nice at the end. I texted Nancy. I'm bored, let's break up. She was furious. I was dealing with this old man because he conveniently gives me money. Good thing you broke up safely. Oh, by the way, this is Nancy, Sharon, your enemy. Take a good look, I said, showing everyone a photo of Nancy and Donald as I returned the phone. That's when it happened. Charles showed a stern expression no one had seen before. Why, my girlfriend is. Everyone but Charles gasped. What's going on, Charles? What are you to Nancy? No, that's my line, Dad. Why are you taking pictures with Nancy? Because I'm her boyfriend, obviously. No, Nancy is my girlfriend. Isn't your girlfriend your classmate? We just met at a bar and started hanging out. Who would have thought that father and son were dating the same person? This development was also surprising for me. Ignoring Sharon and me, who were in shock, the men started a pointless argument about who was more suitable to be Nancy's boyfriend, which eventually escalated into a full-blown brawl, pulling each other's hair. The brawl ended when Charles pulled out a significant amount of Donald's precious thinning hair. After a glance at the soulless face of Donald, I loudly declared, Well, I'm off to my new place. Thank you for everything. I'll be claiming compensation for the affair next time. Bye. I had said there would be no property division, but I didn't mean compensation. Sharon realized that this was a serious affair and, swinging the bag she was holding, began furiously beating Donald in a rage. Donald stood there, head hung low, as if he had been burned out completely, unable to process everything happening all at once. Watching this living hell unfold beside me, I couldn't stop smiling as I hopped on my beloved scooter and left the scene. Although it's a far stretch in my mind, I felt like Tom Cruise in Top Gun. Oh, it's been a while since I've ridden down such a refreshing night road. This is the best. Later on, when I proposed divorce, including the alimony, Charles said, Please wait on the divorce. It seems that Sharon is also considering divorce, and there is a possibility that everyone might lose their homes or their circumstances might change. So, he wants to save as much money as possible. He said things like, Don't you think it's pitiful for us who once lived together to face such a difficult situation? And we need money now. But I didn't care, so I proceeded with the divorce talks without discussion and took as much money as I could get from Charles and his affair partner. When claiming the alimony, I felt a bit like an outlaw. But I hadn't done anything wrong. I had just done what was natural. Well, maybe tampering with someone's phone was slightly wrong. In the end, around the same time as our divorce, it seemed that Sharon also divorced Donald. Apparently, Donald and Nancy's affair had been going on for over 5 years, and Sharon couldn't forgive that they had a relationship in private as well. I don't quite understand why bar hopping is forgivable, but private relationships aren't. I thought there are various forms of marriage. Well, in the end, we're not married anymore. Anyway, Donald was sued for alimony by Sharon, and Charles was sued for alimony by me. So the saying blood will out held true, and the in-laws are now all scattered. Sharon, having been cheated on by Donald, seemed to have grown to despise men in general, including Charles, who had abandoned me in a similar manner. As a result, Charles and Sharon, after the divorce, are slowly becoming distant, though they do have minimal conversations. Donald, jobless, turned to Charles for help but was rejected, as Charles himself was barely scraping by. Charles is juggling multiple jobs, while Sharon, who had been a housewife since her early marriage, is experiencing work for the first time with a part-time job. Donald became a part-time worker, living in a cheap hotel. Charles, eager to marry Nancy, learned that she wasn't interested. Nancy saw both Charles and Donald as mere extensions of her bar work, as convenient sources of money. It turned out that Nancy had other men besides Charles in the same capacity. Charles, having been classmates with her, mistook her for being serious and believed she was his destiny. But in reality, it was a foolish and trivial story. In the end, both men were deemed unnecessary by Nancy, even as convenient sources of money, and were discarded. From my perspective, I thought, since I'm leaving, might as well destroy everything in the process, just as I aimed. I'm very satisfied having witnessed the spectacular collapse of a family. No one in that family valued each other, only caring about themselves. So the outcome was, in a way, inevitable. Essentially, they were a family in name only, lacking any compassion. Now, I think it was good that I got away from that household. On the other hand, while I still come home exhausted from work every day, living alone has freed up my time as I no longer need to allocate it for someone else. I have more freedom than when I was married. Back when I was married, I hardly had time to meet my college friends. But now I can travel with them on my days off and even have time for my hobbies. In college, I was part of the choir, so I decided to join a karaoke club. It seems that one can continue to improve in music no matter the age. I consistently win at the club's competitions and even earn cash prizes. Thanks to that, my wallet is always warmly filled. At the facility where I work, my colleague suggested hosting a karaoke recreation event since I'm good at it, and it was a huge hit. I received many compliments like "you're so good," and was thrilled to bring smiles to the residents through my personal hobby, something I hadn't expected. By the way, my go-to performances are Unchained Melody and My Heart Will Go On. The lyrics of older songs are just so wonderful. I don't really understand recent songs, but I guess I should study up. Though my days aren't glamorous, I'm surrounded by friendly colleagues, trustworthy friends, and kind residents who feel like family. Beyond work boundaries, finally, it seems like I've become the Joy Len I was meant to be. From now on, I aim to be someone who not only receives joy but also shares it with others. All right, let's do our best at work today. I'll wholeheartedly celebrate the residents' birthdays.